So these past few weeks have been kind of rough. I'm not going to lie. I just launched the YouTube channel. I got my first 2 videos pushed out. This is my 3rd video. And over the weekend, last weekend, I chunked out a bunch of shorts, sent those out into the world as well, and sat back and watched as not a whole lot happened. You see a video there after publishing it that's got 1 view on it, and you're like, was that me? Am I the 1 view on that video? So yeah, you're just kind of sitting there listening to crickets, and then you get a surge, and you get 100 views, and you get a couple hundred views, and then you get 700 views on this thing, and then you start getting some likes, then you start getting some subscribers, and you're like, all right, this is actually doing pretty good. And then you get this sense of elation and excitement, and then things kind of stall out again. And then you start with the comparison, comparing the subscribers that you have to how many subscribers most successful channels have, or how many views most successful channels have. And you're like, okay, maybe this is not as great as I thought, So I think it was like 1.6 thousand total views, and it's almost 30 hours of watch time at the last time of me checking. So, people are watching, people are engaging, people are subscribing, but it is, it is an uncertain time, and I'm right in the middle of that uncertainty. I'm right in the middle of the fear of what if it doesn't work, the FOPO, what is it going to say about me if this doesn't work? I've got all of my past failures, of which there are many that are coming to mind as I am bringing this thing out into the world. And so yeah, it's been a doozy of a couple of weeks. Last Tuesday, this past Tuesday, I was just kind of out of commission. Like I couldn't focus. I couldn't do what I wanted to do that day, and it was just kind of a lost day. But despite all of that, the stress has been showing up in other areas of my life as well. It's a real thing, but it's completely different this time around from the other times that I've tried to do this. And that's really what I want to share with you in this video, is because the things that are so different didn't happen by accident. There's certain very specific fundamentals that I can point to that have allowed me to, for one, be like okay, like I'm okay, like I'm good, despite all of this. Tuesday, after that rough day, I had dinner with some friends and family, and had a wonderful time. Walked home afterwards. It was a beautiful evening. Played music for the rest of the night, and was up at 6:30 the next morning. Had my prayer time. Had my mobility time. Got outside for a little bit. Jumped on the bike. Got a couple reps in, some high intensity reps in, and then I got my coffee, and I was back in the saddle and doing what I was supposed to be doing, which was prepping for this video. All right, and I had a great evening that evening. Band rehearsal with some new musicians. Things are really looking good with these guys in terms of this music project that I've been working on. And so yeah, like I'm good. That is so radically different from the last few times that I've tried to make something like this, which is kind of a big deal. This is kind of like I'm putting all my eggs in this basket and putting everything I've got into it. In past times, the stress was just overwhelming. I mean, I was just pushing myself, driving myself, trying to make the thing happen, and just driving myself into the ground. The overwork was, it was all I did. It was just so consuming. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't rested. My life was not in order. So, that's huge. And the other thing that's fundamentally different this time around is that I have absolute certainty that I've got what it takes to make this work. Like, I know that I am unstoppable now. And I know that seems like kind of a brazen thing to say, but I want to explain a little bit as to what that's all about in this video, because I know that I've got it this time. Like, I know that I've got what it takes. The difference between my ability to trust myself to show up and do the work and to be able to withstand the stress and not get taken down by it, to be able to not get taken down by my ADHD, to not get taken down by all of the self-defeating behaviors, the self-sabotaging behaviors, the self-doubt, all the ways that I would put my head in the sand and avoid taking responsibility when the pressure kind of got turned up, the heat got turned up. So yeah, those things are, it's an incredible experience to be at this position, despite the uncertainty, despite the anxiety, despite the stress, despite seeing some cracks kind of showing. The way that it feels, it's like, well, I'm in the ring, and you're bound to take some hits when you're in the ring. Like, that's just how it is. But like, my attitude, my spirit about the whole thing is like, is that all you got? It's like, bring it, let's go. Like, I've got this. So I want to share this with you because I know there are other people out there who have struggled in the past with ADHD, struggled in the past overcoming the resistance, struggled in the past overcoming comfortability with putting yourself out there, with taking that next step where you're, stepping through the threshold and, really standing tall and taking responsibility and taking ownership for the project, like being able to not collapse under that. I know from very personal experience is something that isn't always easy for everyone. So before we jump into that, if you are new here, my name is Paul Jansen. My background is in holistic health. I spent 10 years practicing as an acupuncturist and really honing my intuitions around holistic thinking and helping people find creative solutions or ways to resolve the problems that they were dealing with through somewhat tangential means. So lifestyle was kind of like the name of the game for me at that time. And, regardless of what the struggle was, there was always a way to get to the heart of the problem, get to the root of the problem, and resolve what the person was struggling with using holistic principles. So that was a very formative chapter of my life and definitely has informed the way that I approach problem solving in general. You'll see that all over the place with Create or Perish. From there, I moved on to pursue my interest in cognitive science. I was really interested in understanding the way that the brain works. I pursued a graduate degree at Teachers College at Columbia University, and my focus was on intelligent technologies. So this is all about learning how we learn and how to optimize learning in digital learning environments. And this set me down a path of getting into all manner of different things. And I have a pretty eclectic background that is... it's at the time it didn't really make sense, and there was a lot of people scratching their heads in my family as to what it was I was doing and where I was going. But now, in retrospect, it all kind of makes sense, how all these things are kind of fitting together. And it really allows for a kind of multi-perspectival look at various challenges. I mean, that was really the motivation behind all of that exploration for me, was to try to get to the bottom of what my own challenges were around learning, what my own challenges were in particular around ADHD, challenges around trauma. And so, having come full circle and gone through all of those various modalities, exploring something like, this very practical problem of taking the reins of a creative project, an entrepreneurial project, a solopreneurship project, and figuring out how to problem solve these challenges around, our own self-defeating, self-limiting behaviors, as well as challenges around using systems and using tools and staying on top of things that can be a lot easier sometimes for other people to do. That's where this whole Create or Perish program and system and framework has come from. So, jumping into things here, the most fundamental thing that I have found in my experience and throughout all of these explorations is the absolute primacy that needs to be given to nourishment and renewal. So this has to be the most important thing. And having experienced burnout before and near burnout previous times, my experience was always like I was driving with the brakes on, and the harder I pressed on the accelerator, there was just some kind of weird kink in the way that my vehicle works. The harder I would apply the accelerator, the harder the brakes would come on. And so it was like the more I would try to get up to speed, the more I would just run myself into the ground. And so that really stems fundamentally from a lack of internal resourcing, a lack of nourishment. And internal resourcing involves relational resourcing. So this is spending time, as I was telling you about on Tuesday, with the people that I love, and having that be able to fill my cup and recharge my batteries. My music, I came home from that and played music through the evening. I had music lined up for the next day, and it's kind of like a diversification kind of idea in investing, where you don't want to have all of your assets in your solopreneurship project. Like, you've got to be diversified, and those other stocks have to be different asset classes. It has to be things that fill your cup. It has to be things that fill your soul. So, spending time outdoors, I spend a lot of time going for walks in the woods. When I take breaks, I'll go and just be outside, and just not be on my phone. That's been really nourishing for me. So yeah, that's the first thing I would say, it's like you always got to come back to what it is that you need to renew and nourish and replenish your cup and tend to the cracks in the cup, because ultimately if you're not able to bring a full cup, you're not really able to bring anything of value ultimately. It's going to lack the impact that you ultimately are going to be wanting to make. So, the other thing that has been one of the other things in this set of fundamentals that has been really important has been managing my environment. So, making sure that my space is clean and organized, making sure that all of my living spaces, my room, my music studio, my car, just having things in their place and being organized is really helpful. It's a two-way street. Our internal state and the state of affairs in our environment is bidirectional. And if your place and the space that you're in is cluttered, it's going to lead to a clutteredness inside. It's going to have an impact on you, and that's going to rob you of the focus and the clarity and the internal organization that you need to really stay focused and do what it is that you're here to do. And it's also a reflection of the internal state. So you can use it diagnostically. If everything's a mess, it's like, okay, what does this say about what's going on inside? And so by addressing that and staying on top of it, you don't have to be a Nazi about it, but it should be a priority. The other thing that is really important is time management. So this is incredibly important, especially for those of us who have kind of an ADHD situation going on. It can be incredibly difficult to start certain tasks when we're supposed to start them, to stay on task with the thing that we set out to do. And then it's one of the things that I've struggled with the most, is to actually stop doing that task, to pull the plug on the thing that you are working on so that you can put your time into something else that you have deemed to be important. So managing your time is really important to tighten up your ship and to make sure that you can get all of the important things done, because otherwise things spill over and things get left behind, or you don't get started doing the thing that you set out to do that you need to do to make the ship sail. Then obviously the ship isn't going to sail. So tightening up the fidelity that you have with your calendar is definitely an important piece of this. Another important factor for this, for me, this has been huge, has been fitness. And I think of fitness both in terms of like evolutionary fitness, kind of a broader concept of fitness, but specifically physical fitness, strength training, cardio, high intensity cardio on the bike or sprints or something like that. It's been a game changer for me. I think there's definitely in my studies of somatics and embodied cognition, the mind is embodied, our emotions are embodied, everything is rooted in our embodiment. And there is something really powerful about making yourself do hard things, lift hard things, push yourself through the discomfort of whatever it is you're doing, whether it's on the bike or on the trail or in the gym or in your home gym. I'm a strong advocate for a home gym. I have to literally step over my kettlebells and my weights. My bench is right there. I've got rings hanging right there. I've got a pull-up bar right here. I literally have to walk through that space anytime I'm moving between my office and the rest of my living space. And, so I do a little bit every day. And so if I miss 2 or 3 workouts, I've only missed 2 or 3 days. Rather than going to the gym twice a week, you've got your commute time, you can't get as creative for somebody who has a certain amount of boredom that kicks in with things like being on the treadmill, just doing the same old things, being on a machine. If you're in that groove, obviously do what works. But for me, getting creative with mobility, finding somebody new on YouTube or on Instagram that's doing cool stuff and being able to tap into what they're doing, again, back to the diversification, you're getting more dynamics into what it is that you're doing and a more well-rounded workout in. And it's just more fun. It's just more interesting. And I personally am a lot more likely to stay on top of it if it's interesting, if there's some novelty, if there's some challenge, if there's a movement or something that I'm, want to be able to, master and own. That's kind of, that's exciting. So fitness is key. And, it really helps when we're talking about stress management, we're talking about emotional regulation, just being able to stay centered and grounded and balanced. Fitness is incredibly powerful in that regard. So next, and this is a huge one, is prioritizing our relationships. So the relationships in our life, especially the primary relationships in our life, if those are unstable, your project is going to be unstable, right? This is just the fact of the matter. If your primary relationships are rocky or not being tended to or not being nurtured, then that instability is going to upset the entire apple cart. So not only that, but our relationships feed into the first thing we talked about, which is nourishment. It's our relationships that ultimately keep us whole, that feed us on a deep level, that nurture us, that support us. So relationships are absolutely vital, and our financial stability is also really key for the same reasons. If our financial lives get to become a source of stress, then the whole thing the whole thing gets shaky. Like the whole operation just has a sense of kind of anxious energy about it. There's a sense of urgency that is not a positive kind of urgency. It changes your whole motivation around your why, like what this is all about. It no longer becomes about service. It no longer becomes about curiosity and allowing the creative process to unfold naturally, to kind of experiment and see what happens, and then iterate, and then experiment, and then see what happens, and then iterate. It becomes a necessity that you need to start making money. So it changes the entire relationship that you have with the work that you're doing. So I'd say relationships and finances, for me in the past, if those things are rocky and not dialed in, then you're going to have a hard time. It's going to be exponentially harder to get the plane off the ground. So from here, I think it really is important to take stock of where it is that we're pulling from, because what I'm really all about is mission-driven, purpose-driven projects, right? This is something that is coming from a deep place. There's something that is deeply inspired, deeply meaningful. This is something that comes from some kind of profound experience that you've had, or transformation that you've had, or growth that you've had, or learning that you've had in some arena of your life, and you feel like it's time now to share that with other people. There has to be a continuity from where you're pulling from and what it is that you're delivering and what it is that you're reaching in the people that you are trying to connect with. And so for me, the deepest place to pull from is from a place of faith. And I know faith can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I invite you to please interpret this in whatever way feels right to you. You can think about faith in terms of surrender. But one of the things that this does is it helps to check our ego at the door, I guess you could say, is one way of putting it. It's a recognition that everything that we are doing is, in effect, a kind of leap of faith. It's a kind of trust fall. And we can't know all of the things. We can't be all of the things. We can't have achieved all of the things at the outset before we go through the process of doing the hard work of building something new. And so we have to kind of let go of our desire to control and our desire to make the thing happen, our desire to try to push so damn hard to make everything work, and to just begin from a place of faith, to begin from a place of release, this attitude of surrender into a larger flow that we are a part of. Right? So this isn't to abdicate our responsibility. This isn't to abdicate, the control that we do have over the things that we can affect change in, but it's to recognize that in context. It's to recognize that that is something that is part of a bigger flow, a bigger there's a bigger project at play. Than the project that we are really focused on at the moment. And tied into that, you're talking about this attitude of letting go, or this attitude of release, is the attitude of gratitude. This is so important to be recognizing everything that we've got. You know, we are so incredibly fortunate to have all of the things that we have. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. We have access to an absolutely incredible amount of wisdom and insight about the very things that we are looking to better understand. You know, the gratitude for the resources that we do have, the gratitude for the opportunity that we have, the gratitude for the creative impulse that we have. Like, there's something here that you have, there's a gift that you have, and you are impelled to try to find a way to bring that into the world, that whatever that is. It could be a book, it could be a podcast you want to start, it could be a business that you want to start, it could be a course, it could be something in real life, you know, some kind of program that you want to start. But there's something, and that something comes from somewhere, and that is really, in a way, kind of the source of the energy and the meaning of life. Like, that's the wellspring, in a way, that you know, if we listen to it and if we take action on it, we feed it and we stay true to it, it feeds the soul. So, like, we've got that. And then we have the opportunity to connect the dots. We have these opportunities today that we've never had before with the internet, with things like YouTube, to create a community, create a connection, create an impact. Like, you know, and then we have all of the other things. When we look at the diversified portfolio of our lives, we have all of the other things in our life to be grateful for. And it's so important, again, as we're talking about where we're pulling from, to keep this in mind. You know, this has been absolutely incredible for me, just as a reminder, to not be pulling from a place of scarcity, or what Maslow would call the deficiency drives. You know, it's like you're trying to fill some kind of a hole, or you're trying to, you know, avoid feeling some kind of pain that is hiding in the shadows, and so you are trying to prove something. You know, you're trying to overcompensate for something. So that's a very different place to pull from when you're trying to, you know, make a show of whatever it is that you're doing, or you're trying to impress somebody, or you're trying to establish your core identity based on what other people are going to be thinking about you. You know, those are unsustainable fuel sources, and eventually they run out. So this is just a way of shifting our fuel source back into this always replenishable source of faith, of gratitude, and of generosity. You know, I see generosity as being the other side of the coin of gratitude. It's kind of a flow. You know, we have this gratitude for everything that has come into our life and that we have here in our lives, gratitude for our life itself. And then there's this natural flow. There's this natural extension of that, wherein we're trying to give something. We want to help somebody. We want to give back. We want to connect with people so that we can offer something for them in the same way that other people have offered to us. So, you know, the generosity piece of this is really important too. So these are the kind of the fundamentals for me, in terms of, you know, laying the groundwork for stabilizing my life, and continuing to come back to pulling from a place that is sustainable, that is uplifting, that is energizing, that is stabilizing. You know, even though I'm stressed out right now and there's uncertainty about whether or not this is going to work, there's uncertainty about, you know, whether or not it's going to take off, and all of this kind of stuff, like that stress is happening in the context where I'm not so attached to it succeeding. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay. I'm good. Like, I'm good on my own, and I'm certainly invested. I certainly care. I'm getting stressed out by it, but the stress is not taking me down, right? So that's absolutely huge. And then from here, like, once this stabilizing and rooting, this is kind of like the root structure, right? This is kind of what the taproot and the root structure is all about. It's about stabilizing the plant, and it's about pulling nutrients from someplace really deep, where you're able to survive a cold, hard winter, for example. You've got some depth, you've got some breadth, and you're able to embark on this journey of starting a business or starting some kind of purpose-driven project without getting uprooted, without collapsing under the weight. So from here, for me, the key principle is resolve. So this is all about harnessing this this galvanized sense of self, right? This unified sense of self, harnessing that and channeling it, and just having this concentrated sense of determination to see the thing through. This is where we really kind of come upright into a confident posture, a confident attitude. This is where they bring it. Like, is this all you got? This resolve is what gives us spine. And then from the resolve, then we start applying ourselves very specifically to the things that we need to shore up. So this is what I think about in terms of discipline. So discipline is all about identifying the most high value weaknesses, meaning the things that are most likely to derail the ship, that are most valuable for you to really dial in on, and pick, maybe 2, maybe 3 at the most of those things, and just get really disciplined about figuring out how to dial those things in. And discipline involves a lot of creativity. It involves a lot of failure. I'm failing every day at these things. But it's like a failure in, say, a fenced-in garden area where you've got a breach in the fence and you get some critters coming in. Well, okay, they're getting in over here now. They dug a hole under here, so I'm going to go patch that up. And then as soon as you patch that up, there's some other breach, or there's some other, infestation of some kind of, bugs that are eating this plant or something. Then you tend to that. So it's an ongoing thing that always requires our attention. But the thing about discipline is that over time, when you keep applying it, the things you're applying it to become habitual, and those habits become very energy efficient. It doesn't require discipline to maintain a habit. The habit may shake, the environment may change, the situation may change, and you need to reapply discipline to a habit. But you don't have to apply, nor should you try to apply discipline all the time. People think I'm a very disciplined person. I've heard family and friends tell me that. And I used to think that about other people that I would see. I'd be like, man, they're just must be, super disciplined all the time, because myself being very undisciplined and not having these habits and not having the ensuing changes in identity, that's another energy efficiency transition that happens, is you become the kind of person that does this kind of thing. You become the kind of person that gets up at 6:30. You become the kind of person that works out every day. And that identity carries the momentum. So there's all of these things that can kick into gear, this kind of flywheel effect. But when you don't have that, when you are on the outside of that looking in, it seems like the person who's doing all of these things is just exercising, they're just white knuckling it with discipline all day long. Because from my experience in the past, that was the only way I would have been able to do all of those things, would be to just like put everything I've got into it every day, all day. Not realizing that if you're strategic about it, you have some self-acceptance around your imperfections, you just kind of roll with many of them and identify the most important ones, the most high value ones, and you focus in on those. After a few months, those become habitual and you can focus on some other things. After a few months, those become habitual. You can focus on some other things. After a few years, from the outside looking in, you seem like you are a very disciplined person. And in a way, that's true because you are exercising discipline where it needs to be exercised. But discipline is, it's a muscle, it's a muscle, and it's a tolerance. It's like taking a cold shower or doing a hard workout or making a difficult phone call. You develop a kind of resilience to be uncomfortable and to lean into whatever the resistance is that is keeping you from doing the thing that your discipline is counteracting. So it's a muscle, it's a elevated tolerance for discomfort, and both of those things can be developed over time. So from here, the culmination of this in a way for me is this idea of leadership, right? So we're kind of building up from the ground, we're drawing from the roots, we have this sense of resolve, we are exercising discipline, our lives are starting to tighten up, we're getting our shit together and keeping it together, keeping our calendar together, we're on top of it. We're surfing the wave rather than getting pulled under the water all the time. And so this in itself is an expression of leadership. This is a kind of self-leadership. But then we have this kind of confidence that I was speaking to, that we can take a leadership role in our creative work, that we're going to keep the promises that we make to ourselves. This is especially challenging for people who have ADHD, especially challenging for people who have a history of a trauma. It was a big part of my story back in the day. There's a kind of a shame complex that works its way in when that is a part of your history. And shame, and not just the emotion of shame, but the kind of freezing of that state that gets instilled from a young age into the nervous system, into the identity, and that kind of deeply embedded state of something's wrong with me. That is kryptonite to confidence. It's kryptonite to being bold. It's kryptonite to being able to stand up and step out and put yourself out there. So that's another factor to consider. But being able to finally stand up and step out. This is a leadership role, right? And so once we're able to find stability here, then we start to develop this kind of confidence that I was speaking to earlier around following through, around being able to manage uncertainty, being able to basically just handle whatever it is that comes our way, because we have the experience of doing it. We have the experience of collapsing, falling out of the saddle, failing, and then climbing back up again from the ground up, building up from faith, from gratitude, reconnecting to the generous spirit, what we're here for. We're really trying to serve. We're trying to help other people. We're pulling from this place, and we develop more resolve. Every time we build ourselves back up, there's even more resolve, and we get more discipline. We get more committed to what it is that we're doing, and we stand up with more confidence and certainty and more self-trust. And this is really, kind of what it's all about when you're taking a leadership role, is trusting that the wheels aren't going to come off the bus, trusting that you're going to be able to stay the course, trusting in yourself that you're going to be able to keep the commitments that you're making. And I can tell you, as somebody who historically wasn't able to do this for most of my life, as soon as you start to get those reps in terms of like, holy shit, like I'm able to do this. Like these were the commitments I set, these were the deadlines I set, and I'm able to do it. Like I'm able to stay on top of it. That self-trust is something that through experience fundamentally changes your identity and your relationship with yourself. You suddenly become the kind of person who can do these things, as opposed to the kind of person who always seems to, fail to do those things. So those are the kind of one set of fundamentals, and they are also the first two frameworks that I just outlined in the creative integrity model. So this is one of the backbone components of the creative integrity approach. There's the model, and then there's the system. And so this is something that did not come just like, from my head, and it's like conceptually thinking of a way that makes sense to lay this stuff out. This is something that has been derived through my own life experience and the incorporation of many of these other models and frameworks that I've been exposed to over the years. So if you want to take a deeper dive, I've got a full overview in the the Create or Perish community, and I'll leave a link here in the video for that. But there's more to the story here, because this really just kind of gets us ready to go into battle. This gets us ready to go on the voyage, to climb the mountain. And we also need a set of tools or a set of core fundamentals that can help guide us as we enter the fray, as we cross the threshold, and bring ourselves out into the uncertainty of the real world, of trying to, connect to people and create enough value with what it is that you're doing that you can make a business out of it. All right, so the first piece of this for me is authority. All right, so this is pulling from the same conversation around confidence, where we have the authority. We're saying what we have to say with authority. We're presenting our project with authority. We are essentially the CEO of ourselves. We're kind of putting on a hat and taking that leadership role to the next level, where we're stepping out with confidence and with authority. And I, for one, had a lot of discomfort around this. I was very uncomfortable around feeling like I was going to come across as being egotistical or overbearing or like arrogant or something like that. I just had a real tenuous relationship with authority. And back to the fundamentals of relationships, it's been my relationships with some of the mentors that have come into my life in the last year or two, and just reflecting on other people who I really look up to, people who I've really been inspired by, people whose work has really had an impact on me, whose lives have had an impact on me. And I look at how they show up in the world, and I find that they're very comfortable with leadership. There was an interview I listened to recently with Olivia Dean. She's an incredible singer. She's a rising star from Great Britain. And she was being asked as a young woman, I think she shot up to fame, I think she was like 18, 19 or something like that. She was being asked about being in these rooms with mostly men, older men, who are successful in their own rights, producers and people in the music business, who think they know best about what kind of an act you should be, what kind of a musician you should be, what you should do with this song, what your sound should be. And her answer, I thought, was really beautiful. She said, you have to find a natural control. Right? And I think this is really, really important. It's not like we're taking authority to the place where, we are the be all, end all, and this is what I say and what I say goes. It's more in the spirit of authorship. You know, we are the author of our lives. We are the author of this creative project. We are entrusted to see it through and to bring it to life, right? We have to be that author. We have to stand up and have this kind of natural control, right? And so the thing that I like to think about is going in conjunction with authority is comfort. So we are comfortable with ourselves. We're not all uptight. We can take criticism. There's a kind of quiet confidence, you know, it's not like an arrogant confidence. And, you know, all of that goes a very long way when it comes to instilling trust in other people. So we talked about self-trust, but there's also this incredibly important piece of this, which is instilling trust in other people. And so this brings me to another one of these fundamentals that is important as we're bringing our work into the world is social skills or soft skills. You know, it's not just all about being good at what we do. It's not just about having something of value to offer. It's about being able to engage with people in a way where they trust you. These are potential collaborators. These are possible future bandmates. You know, these are possible future mentors. These are possible future clients. These are existing clients. These are readers, viewers, whatever the case may be. You are you have to be able to get good at the social skills and the soft skills and the engagement with other people. You're not going to be able to do this thing in a silo where it's just you and you just put something out into the world and say, okay, well, here it is, take it or leave it. I guarantee you people are just going to leave it. You've got to stand behind it. You have to represent it. You have to engage. You have to be willing to learn how to massage, prioritize, foster relationships to make this work. And then finally, we have our own skills. Like you have to level up your game with whatever it is. You have to have high expectations of yourself. And there's a conversation here around perfectionism, which has been something I've struggled with throughout my life. You know, that's it's a tricky thing when you're talking about excellence and aspiring to be excellent. In the words of Cal Newport, aspiring to be so good they can't ignore you. Like there has to be some benchmark that you hold for yourself and for your work that is higher than average. And but not to get that confused with perfectionism. So that's a conversation for another time. But the key here is that for me, you know, the skills that we develop, whether it's your skills as a writer, your skills with video production, your skills in communicating ideas or storytelling, your skills as a coach, your skills at whatever it is that you're doing, the skill set is the least important of the other things that we just touched on. The soft skills and the social skills are more important than your skill set. The comfortable confidence, having comfort and then having authority, you know, the capacity to be able to stand up, step out and stand behind and speak to the project, the work that you're doing with authority, those are the most fundamental things. Now, I believe that your skills are vitally important. That's really important. But this is a kind of hierarchy that helps remind us that the skill set is actually least important. This is an incredibly important reminder for me because I oftentimes tend to get really hyper-focused and obsessive about the skill set side of things. And you have to remember that this is a very human project and that we can't forget about the inner work, you know, the inner alignment. That authority really comes from all of the first set of things that I was talking about. That second framework is actually called the axis of authority. And, you know, it's about bringing ourselves up into this sustainably upright position where we can then step out into the world and get after it and make an impact, you know. So, I think that for me really is a powerful way of framing, kind of from a higher level view, the work that is involved. But getting a little bit more granular, the approach to being able to figure out how to use systems and tools effectively. For somebody with ADHD, this has always been a challenge for me. I would get absolutely obsessed and determined and committed to some kind of approach to productivity, and I'd be into it for, like, all in to it for a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months, and then I would just kind of peter out, and then I would just be on autopilot for months, if not longer. So figuring out how to have a relationship with these productivity tools, this idea of organic productivity. I've got a video on that I will put a link to as well. But the engagement with the tools, this is the real tactical piece of this. This is the real kind of practical, where the rubber meets the road, how you actually get traction. Like, we're looking for momentum, we're looking for impact, but to get the momentum, you've got to have traction. And having traction fundamentally is about time management, and it's about being plugged into your calendar, having clarity around what your goals are, and building back from that what it is that you need to be doing on any given day to achieve those goals. And so I always, in the past, with past projects, would just kind of jump in and figure it out each day. It was like, okay, I've got this amount of time to work, and I'm just going to jump into my work and I'm going to do whatever comes up. And that lack of organization is really problematic, because you aren't necessarily doing the most high leverage activities. You're oftentimes being subverted by the resistance, which is convincing you that actually this thing is more important than that thing, when in fact that thing is the thing that has the most alignment with your short-term, medium-term goals, with actually moving the needle. And so left to your own devices, you start to falter on the self-trust piece. You're not doing the things you actually need to do. You're doing the things where you're kind of just spinning your wheels. It looks like productive work, but you're not actually moving towards producing something. You're not actually shipping something. You're not actually doing something that will connect you to somebody else, which means you're not being productive. You're just being busy. So the key here is to be able to categorize the different kinds of work that are involved in whatever creative enterprise that you are doing. And I've categorized this into what I call the I drop ship framework. So the I is all about the inspiration. So this is a reminder that we are, like with this video, for example, I am not trying to copy what somebody else is doing on YouTube. I am not trying to copy what somebody else is doing on Instagram. There are, especially in the beginning, certain aspects of this video and the other videos and my podcast where I am imitating what other people are doing. This is this idea from jazz where you first you imitate, right? You learn how to play the solos of the people who've come before you exactly the way that they played them. And then once you can imitate, then you innovate. Then you start to make certain things your own. And once you get good at innovation, then you can start to improvise. You can't just jump into improvising if you don't know the vocabulary, if you're not imprinted with everything that's come before. You don't know the language. So there are certain things about the structure of the videos, there's certain things about the production of the videos where I am trying to emulate what other creators have done. But in terms of the message, the heart and soul, the energy, if you hear the energy behind what I'm saying, that's coming from this I, this inspiration. In my journal, when I'm collecting ideas, I put a little I and I circle it, and I've got the idea. The idea is coming from this taproot of this inspiration, right? And this is really important to keep in mind when, especially we get into something like creating content. because as soon as you get into the content creation game and you start learning from influencers and other people on YouTube about how you go about creating content, it's very derivative, right? You're not really coming up with anything original. I'm not a purist. I'm not saying there isn't a place for that, but the heart and the soul, the core of what it is that you're doing has to come from your own inspiration. And then once you have that seed of inspiration, drop, the D in drop is for development. So this is where you take the idea and you let it blossom. And you don't put on your editor's cap. You have space to explore and connect dots and consider possibilities and just let it sprawl. Like, let it just be a mess. And develop the idea and develop it here and develop it there. And what about this and what about that? And just let it be an inspired exploration, right? So that's a category of time, is the development phase. For this video, on Tuesday, actually it was Wednesday morning, as I was outlining at the beginning of this video, Wednesday morning was a D slot for this particular video, for developing the idea that you are now hearing. After you have developed the idea, then you have the refinement. This is the R and drop. You have a refinement process where you put on the editor's cap and you boil it down. So whether you're writing a song or you're writing a Substack post or you're creating a YouTube video, you are now in this refinement phase. You're littering the copy room floor with all of your edits. You're killing all of your darlings so that you can stay absolutely true to what the message is, to what is necessary for that particular thing that you're creating. That is a separate category, right? And then we have the operations. This is the O in drop. Operations is for all of the technical stuff. This is for the lighting, for the video, for the editing software, creating a website, creating your Substack, writing a bio, learning how to use social media, learning how to use Instagram and Reels, and how to promote what it is that you're doing, whatever it is. If it's not really directly related, but it's a supportive role, the infrastructure that is involved in bringing your creative work into the world, that's a separate category. And then finally, we have production. So production is what I'm doing right now. Right now in my calendar, I am inside of a time window, and that time window is shooting this video, and that's in the P category. And when I edit this video, that's also part of the production process. So for somebody who's writing or leveraging LinkedIn, there's going to be a lot less of production and probably a lot more on the refinement and the edits and the third draft and the fourth draft. And if you're writing a book or something like that, those things are going to be much more time consuming. So it's going to look differently depending on what your project is. But those are the basic components. And then we have the ship. So it's I, drop, ship. Shipping is your deadline, right? This is what this is all about. Right? What's the point of all of this creativity? So what's the point of having a farm or a garden, creating all of this produce, if you're not bringing your produce to market? It's all about bringing your produce to somebody's dinner table, right? So they can sink their teeth into it and they can derive some kind of nourishment, some kind of benefit from it. So this is the most high leverage thing that you can do, is build in these commitments to shipping, to actually getting something out the door. And there's a great Duke Ellington quote. I think I mentioned it in one of my other videos, where somebody was asking him if he needed more time in one of his compositions. He said, "I don't need more time, I need a deadline." Having a deadline dials everything backstream in, right? Having a deadline, say in the world of music, having a gig on the calendar completely changes. Everything comes into focus. It's like all of the work that's required, all of the time that you're going to be putting into that thing. It's like all of that has like little metal filaments inside. And if you don't have a deadline, all of those filaments are kind of pointed in different directions, and you get into the work and you kind of are doing this and you're kind of doing that and you're kind of doing this. As soon as you have a deadline, all of those filaments are aligned, and the ones that aren't aligned fall by the wayside. Everything that's important comes into focus, and you come into focus. The energy comes online, and you do the work that's required to ship the thing. Right, so I drop ship is the key to unlocking this puzzle, and then the organic productivity is vital. I've already done a video on that. This is about our relationship with these, especially if you have ADHD, because the unfortunate reality is that not everybody can use these kinds of systems effectively. It's like, okay, great, you've got this formula for how to organize your time, but what about actually implementing it? The implementation is really important, and our relationship with the system, our relationship with ourselves as we go about trying and failing to incorporate the system is vitally important. So what this does is not only does it keep us in I like to call it meta mode. We're in a metacognitive mode. We're putting ourselves up into the driver's seat. We're not just pulled into doing the work. We're also in this meta mode. We're like, oh, I'm doing this specific thing for this specific period of time, and then I'm going to do this specific thing for this specific period of time. So it's a counterbalance to the hyper-focus tendencies where you just get completely absorbed and consumed by something. It pulls you into this kind of prefrontal cortex executive function mode where you are the one driving the ship rather than the one, or in addition to the one doing the work, on the floor of the ship. The other thing, and one of the most crucial things that this does, is it gives you a clear understanding of what things are, how much time things are actually going to take. You have a realistic understanding of how long things are going to take. One of the challenges with ADD is time blindness. So, you don't really get it. You don't really understand. It's like, okay, I've got to do this thing. I've got to make a video. And, the operations piece, you end up spending 2 hours trying to figure out the lighting and the video setup and the editing and all of that. And it's like, oh my God. So if you know that it takes 2 hours for the operations, and you know that because organic productivity is, it very skillfully uses the calendar where you're actually tracking, like when I'm done with this, I'm going to change the calendar event in Google Calendar to reflect how much time I actually spent recording. So you can look back retrospectively on your calendar and say, okay, well, this is how long it actually takes me to set up for a video. This is how long it actually takes me to edit a video. If it's taking me 3 hours to edit a video and 2 hours to set up the video, I probably can't do 4 videos a week, right? So your expectations in terms of what you feel like you can realistically ship changes. Right, so that's the long and the short of it, and these are the other two frameworks in the creative integrity model. All right, so this is the hierarchy of influence. This comes directly from a guy named Chase Hughes' work, and the second is the I drop ship and engage. That's another thing I've kind of tacked on because that's another time block that's really important. It's actually engaging with folks. Those are the two remaining frameworks. So again, I've got a video on those as well in the free community if you want to take a deeper dive. But I really wanted to impart here the way in which this has really landed me on both feet, even though I am right now still in the very middle of the uncertainty. I mean, this would be the time in the past where I would get taken down. Like I would just not be focused. I would not be rested. I would not be nourished. I didn't have the leadership skills. I didn't have the self-trust. I didn't have the roots in my life to nourish and nurture and stabilize me and give me that kind of renewable wellspring of support, motivation, drive, energy, resolve, all that good stuff. And so that's really what I wanted to impart to you, is more the personal side of the story rather than just kind of like a dry presentation of the model and this is how it works and these are the acronyms, and all that stuff is there in the free community. But I really wanted to try to share and convey to you the personal part of this, because it's a very real thing, and it's very refreshing, and it's very realizable. Even if you have struggled in the past, I can promise you that it's not very likely that you've struggled as much as I have with these kinds of things. Yeah, I totally get it, but there is a way. It is possible. It may take longer. For example, learning how to stay plugged into a system that is necessary to shore up your weaknesses. It may take longer to internalize that and have it become habit, but it is possible if you stick with it and you are not too hard on yourself and you just keep coming back. I think that's the ultimate secret ingredient to all of this, is no matter how many times you fall off the horse, like when the time's right, get back up again and get after it again. And each time you do, these things will become a little bit more crystallized, a little bit more internalized, and then you'll experience these kind of tipping point moments where there will be a transition. There will be like a synergy. Things will kind of lock into place, and you're like, oh, okay. If you take a step back and you're like, you kind of reflect, like how was this for me 5 years ago, 3 years ago, a year ago? And you say, okay, actually, this is kind of dialed in now. It's like, all right, that's a win. Like that's a huge, it doesn't matter what you're struggling with right now, right? Because there's always going to be something you're struggling with, but focus the attention on the thing that has gotten, become a part of you. Like that's huge. That can't be discounted. We have a tendency to discount it. We have a tendency to focus on the things we're not able to do, the things where we're slipping, the things where we're not measuring up to where we feel like we should be. And we lose sight of, they seem insignificant, but they are not, because they accrue. They accrue, and over time they coalesce. And eventually you accrue enough where you can actually keep the bowling ball in the bowling lane, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have everything dialed in. I certainly don't have everything dialed in, but you have to have enough dialed in. You have to make your weaknesses strong enough that, you can keep the thing on the tracks and allow your strengths that you do have to really shine. And eventually, you just kind of get the swing of things. So I hope this was helpful. Really appreciate you being here. Appreciate you listening to this somewhat unusual perspective on productivity and solopreneurship. I invite you to come check out the free community and come say hello and check out some of the things there. I'm really going to be keeping all of the deeper dives and the more, technical kinds of presentations to the community for people who are looking for a more organized, systematized, approach to all of this. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, please do come on over and say hello. And I bid you a fond farewell. We'll see you next time.